Okay, as not much has happened over the last couple of weeks, I thought I would do this by blog instead of writing it down. Just so you can tell me what you think if you prefer it this way. As far as my health is concerned, in truth, not a lot's happened over the last couple of weeks. The vomiting, the output is still the same, the pain difficulties, the joints are still there, but it hasn't really changed a huge amount. In fact, it got me thinking, so my symptoms are still there, they haven't changed, but I've been out and about a little bit the last couple of weeks. People have gone, oh, you look great, you look fantastic, oh, amazing, you look this, you look that. I have to say, looking great health-wise, not looking great physically. I know I need a shave, apologies. But it got me thinking about, actually, if you don't walk around with an obvious ailment, whether it be a cast on your leg or a sling or something, nobody really knows what's going on inside you, and that got me to thinking about a term that a lot of people have used before about invisible illness. In fact, there's even an invisible illness week out there. Basically, you know, an illness like Crohn's disease or inflammatory bowel disease of any variety is an illness you don't necessarily see. Yes, you can tell when I'm a bit fuller in the face when I'm on steroids or different things, but generally you don't know. It's like your clothes and your body are a curtain, and if you peel back the curtain you'd see things were a problem, but actually you don't. So you walk around with a smile on your face and everybody assumes everything's good. So it just got me thinking about, you know, how people cope, how you might cope with a long-term chronic illness when actually you're walking around looking great. So it's that psychological impact that I was really thinking about. But as far as my own health was concerned, I suppose the biggest progress was I met with Dr. Joel David, rheumatologist at Oxford this week. Really nice guy. And he looked at photos, because I'd taken photos on my mobile of my joints locking and how they were. And he was like, look, if it wasn't for the fact you grew up with Crohn's and when you were a youngster you had things like ankylosing spondylitis and a vascular necrosis. Oh, by the way, below this link on my blog are links to all these terms that may mean nothing to you, but if you want to have a look at them, click on them. Anyway, he said, if it wasn't for the fact that you had these joint problems in the past, your issues with the fingers locking and the leg and the knee, etc., very much seem to be a metabolic issue. In other words, what are your vitamin D levels like? What's your calcium levels, your magnesium, your potassium? And of course, you begin to think, because from a transplant point of view, they have a set of blood levels and criteria that have to be looked at very carefully, and the boundaries are fine. But then when you go into something like rheumatology, those levels vary. So, for example, my iron levels are very low all the time. It's quite a common thing from a bowel condition that you have low iron and you need iron infusions. Well, what I subsequently found out is that those iron infusions can cause other levels to go off and can increase the problems with my joints. So I had a couple of blood tests. I am going to have an ultrasound or two on my hand and on my feet just to see that there's no underlying inflammation that could take me back to my previous history. But if not, then it's fortunately likely to be a metabolic issue, and we have to look at the various infusions and keeping the balance of levels right. So, and that in truth is probably where I'm at health-wise at the moment. For me, the build-up really is to 5th of November. I'm going in for my bigger surgery, but I'll update you about that another time. You don't want to hear about that again. Aside from health, what have I been doing the last couple of weeks? Well, I've been really privileged to spend a bit of time speaking at a few events. One that was particularly interest to me, I got to speak at a couple of events, pharma-related events, which as a patient I hadn't really done before. And one of them was really about data and how we treat data. And you know, it kind of got me thinking. I stood up and I talked an awful lot about, I guess, the groups that you and I are currently maybe engaged in, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be on Facebook, whatever it may be, the online communities that we share together, and the fact that all that data exists in those online communities. And you know, pharmaceutical companies want to kind of access it because it will improve potentially the drugs that they can produce, and we really should be talking to pharma as patients because it can help improve our outcomes. But there's this barrier in the middle called regulations, and then there's this nasty barrier in the middle where we all think that pharma companies are out to make multi-billions, and do they really care about patients? And I got asked a question at one of the events, which was, what's your engagement with pharma been like over the last 30 years? And I said, well, I haven't had one. I haven't spoken to a pharmaceutical company. I don't have one. And then I got off stage, and someone talked to me and said, yes, you have. Your whole illness has been controlled by pharma because they tell the doctors what to prescribe you. And I just thought, actually, that's a load of rubbish. I haven't engaged with pharma, and I'm not silly enough to think that the doctors don't make their own decisions. Yes, there might be certain drugs that get pushed, but ultimately, I have to have a belief in a patient that the doctor prescribes for me what they think is the best course of treatment, not because of what the pharmaceutical company is thinking. But put all that to one side, it was this data point that has really stayed with me, and how we access and how we bring the two together. And then just a few days ago, I was involved in discussions on what NHS England have determined as the Citizens' Assembly. And Tim Kelsey and the board of NHS England want to create this assembly. It's a working title, Citizens' Assembly, that comprises of patients and bodies that really have filtered up from the ground and are really their eyes and ears and as to what are the issues on the ground for patients. And it kind of got me thinking that, with 15 months to go towards a general election, and here it is, NHS England and a new board want to create an assembly so that they know what's going on the ground. But if you're a board member and you're effectively making decisions about all of us, shouldn't you already know what's going on the ground? I mean, there's Healthwatch, there's CCGs, there's all these opportunities to get involved in healthcare. Why do you want another body when you should already know? But then it got me thinking deeper, and I sort of threw the cynicism out the way and just thought, actually, you know what? Any opportunity for us to be engaged, to have a real seat at the table, to act as patient leaders in the way, the Centre for Patient Leadership thinks about it, is a fantastic opportunity. But I guess that the nub of it all for me is, will the Assembly actually have any power to do anything? Will we be able to influence decisions and strategy that are made about us? And for me, that's the million-dollar question. And then I got thinking, well, the NHS has appointed a new CEO. They start in the spring. What about appointing a patient CEO to sit alongside that person? Somebody that could liaise with the Assembly, liaise with everything, and really bring to the fore the patient voice and the patient discussion. Bit out there, I know, won't ever happen, but hey, I just thought I'd mention it to you. The last point I'd like to finish on today is this. A lovely lady at this assembly was talking to me about the Obama election and how social media played such a huge role in the Obama first of all, initial election and then re-election. And I was thinking, if I had an ultimate vision, it would be to enable social media to empower everybody in healthcare to really become more engaged, really, a vision to use social media and use digital technology to really bring on that engagement in the way that Obama. And I got hold of this guy called Harper Reid, who was the CTO for the Obama campaign, responsible for social media and building that. Really nice guy, and privileged. He came back to me straight away and passed on the information to one of his teams, because if we could use social media and harness it in terms of being able to deliver that engagement and that change in healthcare that it did in terms of changing the world. Because let's be honest with you, bringing Obama in as president changed the world, and social media played a big part in it. Not the only part, but a big part. Well, could we not do the same in health? I'll leave it with you to think about.